Starting a business and being blind and ignorant and dumb is an advantage. Very first day I met them, I said, they're cocky. And I knew they had a vulnerable heel. I said, I'm going to come and I'm going to get them. Artificial intelligence has changed so many businesses. You have a limited window to influence your kids to cause them pain. Make sure you have a post-up with your wife.
Why are you so jaded?
I'm jaded? I mean, I've been hearing recession talk all year round. Okay, now it's going to happen in the next quarter. What he pitched was bullshit. He pitched the Trump factor. I watch these grown men, analytical, financial types fall for it.
So how do you feel then, DeSantis versus Trump versus Biden?
Well, I think Biden needs some vitamins, whatever.
Kevin O'Leary said that...
You're not going to quote Kevin. Please spare me.
He actually
I have to listen to him all day.
Welcome back to another episode of the Meet Kevin Show. Today we are honored to have Barbara Corcoran in person in New York City, Manhattan. Barbara,
thank you for welcoming.
Thank you. This is the place that started everything. Tell us about it for you.
Oh, you mean my career?
Yeah.
I love New York City. I think sometimes I look around the city and I think I could have never built a great business if I wasn't in New York City. It was a town that the moment I walked in as a poor kid from New Jersey, that the whole city welcomed me. It was a town that thrived on change, even though they make a big deal about where you're educated. Lip service, the fact of the matter is New York doesn't give a Oh, I forgot the last.
Don't go say whatever you want, Barbara. It's
totally. Sure you believe it? Okay. New York doesn't give a darn about where you were from. They just want to know what you could do for them lately. That was my value, and that's what I brought to the city. And it would have never happened anywhere but New York.
Now, Kevin O'Leary says he wouldn't be caught dead living in New York City.
He can't afford it. He's full of Kevin just doesn't have the bucks. He's been looking at apartments and asking me for good deals for probably 12 years. And then when I give him a good deal, he says, well, not right yet. He just doesn't have the cash.
He's a big fan of diversifying, no more than 5% into one security or more than, say, 10, 15% in one sector. Is he making a mistake? Should he be like you and all in on real estate?
Hey, listen, I have my own opinion on that. I believe people that put that theory forward are probably doing what they say, but do I believe it? No. I have noticed that the wealthiest people in the world do what they do well. And I do real estate well. I do investing well. I get good returns. I know how to pick properties. So why would I want to be better at the stock market that I know nothing about? Or any other industry for that matter? Even though I've invested in 150 businesses on Shark Tank, all different kinds of businesses, and I put my money there, that's the limit of my money, my cash investment in that. All of the other money I make, I put into real estate. And that's why I've gotten rich. I would have never gotten rich if I had tried to diversify, as Kevin says. No, again, Kevin is wrong.
Wow. Now, my father-in-law, who helped me get started as a real estate broker myself.
You married the right girl.
Hey, there it is. So my father-in-law, he always said, I sell real estate, I don't sell real estate. Because he was a big fan of serving his clients, but keeping all the real estate he could get his hands on and building wealth through investing in real estate. He believed that you made your money investing in real estate versus solely your income. What's your take for somebody?
Oh, of course. Investing in real estate is a wonderful magic trick. What happens is you become rich, very slowly. And you can't spend the equity. Well, you can mortgage out. I've taken mortgages out of my buildings for spending money, but the fact of the matter is it's a guarantee you're going to get rich if you just hold the course. Didn't you find your father-in-law got very wealthy doing that?
Absolutely.
Before you proposed to his daughter?
Good point. No, the question then is, that's not as maybe sexy as putting it all on a call option expiring this Friday and getting rich overnight.
You find that sexy?
I don't. I'm just saying a lot of viewers, they want to get rich quickly. You said get rich slow. That's not as exciting, though.
Oh, it's much more exciting. Do you know how good it feels to look at your portfolio and look at it 6 months later and realize your rent roll has increased 12%? And your mortgage is the same, and you don't need a new roof on the building, and you've put that cash in the bank? No, it's great. If you own real estate, you measure it by the day almost, by your rent roll. And to realize that the economy always makes rents go up. I never met a landlord who brought rents down. It just doesn't happen. So I just look at my properties and realize they're my future. They're just going to become bigger money makers as they go. No, that's thrilling. Not winning on an option and you lose it the next day. No, I don't believe that.
starting with your own home?
Mhm.
Would you rent where you live or buy where you live?
Well, I would always buy where I lived, and I always have bought where I live. But I have a son who's 28 who has an investment company in real estate, and he will not buy. He says he makes more money if he invested in another kind of real estate. It drives me crazy. I love owning, and people intrinsically love owning. It's not an intellectual decision. They like to know that they're the king of the universe. They decide what's going to go on here. They're going to decide what they're going to spend, not somebody else.
Wow. Yeah. When it comes to people getting started,
Mhm.
people are always worried about the recession or
Mm.
inflation or what's the Fed going to do. Should they just start in real estate and not worry about all that noise, or is there something to time
I
it?
think there's great virtue in starting anything. It doesn't have to be real estate. Starting a business and being blind and ignorant and dumb is an advantage. I mean, I think if I was well educated and understood the economy and listened to the reports on recession when I was starting out or later building the business into something large, I don't think I would have done as well. There
Oh.
is greatness in just having a hyper focus on who you want to become and what you want to build and just going for it. You listen to all the noise out there, 90% of it never comes true. I mean, I've been hearing recession talk all year round. Okay, now it's going to happen in the next quarter. I don't pay attention to it. I mean, it just gets psychologically in your way, and it doesn't change anything.
Right.
It really doesn't.
It's
change
always the
anything.
next quarter. Recession's
Oh,
either
it's
always coming or
nonsense.
here.
Too much information. So much of it is headline getting in every way, and it's effective, but it really does hurt people psychologically about their attitude toward investing.
Absolutely. Would you say that a lot of, and at least it seems this way, a lot of people want to start businesses, but they get caught up not just in the fear of the market, but also this fear of reliability, this fear of employees, this fear of making mistakes. And that maybe puts them in quicksand where they never actually get started. What would you say to people who feel like that?
It's the hardest part of building a business is getting a start.
Wow.
You're better off getting any old start, doing it all wrong, and getting out in the street and actually having a business, because then you find out what's wrong with it. But people have been educated to make business plans, to analyze things, deductive reasoning. And I guess there's a place for that. And the more educated someone is, the less likely, I believe, they are probably going to be successful as an entrepreneur.
That's the opposite of what you would expect.
Well, it's exactly what I expect. On Shark Tank, I never invest in kids that have money. I mean, I know it's a precious attitude toward it, but if they have money, what are they reaching for? They've had the fancy vacations, the nice cars, mom and pa's there always as a backdrop. They never make money for me. You give me a poor kid who has something to prove, something to struggle about, something they don't even know anything about, and they find a way. I'm just a believer that too much education can really hurt people. Not that I'm not for education, but when it comes to building a business, I think what you have to do is rely on experience to just get it going.
Sounds like that leap of faith versus an analysis paralysis, maybe.
Yes, like when you got married, or did you analyze the financial statement?
No, exactly.
Okay, so you followed your gut and you just went for it, right? How's it doing, by the way?
Well, yeah, it's great.
I'm not kidding you.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, I was going to actually ask you about raising children. It was one of my later questions.
Well, that's better than asking me about my marriage.
Oh, why? No, okay, now you have to tell me both.
No, see, I was just teasing you up. I've been married 38 years, and I think it's a constant struggle in endurance. I think you just have to stay with it. I mean, most of my friends have dropped like flies. Their husbands are gone.
Oh.
Not me. I stay with my bill. I know what I got, and I look around at all the other husbands, and I think, do I want any of them more than I want Bill? No. So I settled back down to Bill. I think marriage is a great thing to stay with.
Isn't that always an issue that people have, though? They sort of see the grass is always greener somewhere else. And
Only if they're a fool.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you have to concentrate on the important things in life, what's really your core value in a relationship. And if you could stay focused on that and not get distracted by all the noise around you and people's opinion around you, you can stay focused on having a rock solid marriage, I think.
I think that actually relates also to entrepreneurship, because a lot of people get caught up in, they want to start a business and then other people have their opinions. Oh, no, you shouldn't do that. Oh, it's a bad time. I remember when I became a real estate agent in 2010, people checking me out at Trader Joe's. Oh, real estate. Oh, that sucks. What a terrible business to get into. People coming up to me, in-laws. Oh, other in-laws. You should get a real job. Why would you get into real estate?
Yeah. Well, it gave you a sense of shame,
Yeah.
but it depended upon how stubborn you were and how ambitious you were and how competitive you were with yourself as to whether you're going to do it or not. So the question is, did it really bother you? No, because you stayed the course, right?
It
So who
almost
cares what they
motivated me
say?
in a weird way. I felt like...
Show them. I'll show you.
Yeah, exactly.
But can I tell you, that attitude of I'll show you is paramount to building a business, because in the worst times when everybody allows you to throw in your hat and give up, Generally, a good entrepreneur has that thing kick in, like, oh yeah, I'll show you. So if you have that, you're meant to be in business for yourself.
That's funny you say that. I just had a service provider that I thought was providing this incredible service. I mean, we don't have to go into the details of it, but something happened that I thought was very disappointing, almost disrespectful. But I never like to blame the other person. I thought to myself, okay, let me make some phone calls and see what they actually do.
Yes.
And then I realized I could get a special license, and basically we could bring in-house what they do. We could save money, and we can grow the business more. So that crisis turned into this interesting opportunity. And personally, I think that resonates with what you're saying.
Yeah, but you're taking a couple of things for granted. Number one, you're taking for granted that you weren't happy with the service and you're empowered to do something about it. Secondly, you put the time and the energy into checking it out. Thirdly, you had the self-confidence to think, I could do it better. That's a lot of 3 steps that a lot of people don't have. So if you make a bundle on that, it's worth it. You deserve it. And if you do very, very well on it, you deserve it even more. That's what I think.
That's great advice for somebody getting started.
Oh, sure. You got to just get going. You know, most people who are successful in entrepreneurship, and I deal with so many different people starting businesses, that's my trade, frankly, as much as real estate is my trade. And I have to tell you, that is the best advice you just handed out. So say it again. What did you say?
Well,
I forgot what you said.
No. Just to this idea of,
Yeah.
well, if maybe you feel slighted or something, how could you improve on it and take control yourself and improve on something, maybe provide a better service?
Let me tell you something that happens with me with my Shark Tank businesses. When Eddie was on Shark Tank, they're discovered. So even if it's a half-baked business, they have great sales and they think they're incredible. Every entrepreneur thinks, I'm a brilliant person now. Look at all these sales. But what happens is I wait about 3 to 4 months until the first catastrophe happens.
There's always going to be one.
And they're looking to me for a solution, and I help as best I can. But that's not really why I'm there. I'm there to listen to their attitude about what went wrong. And there's only 2 kinds of entrepreneurs. And I demolish the ones that are in the wrong category. But the good ones take the responsibility on themselves. The bad ones blame it on the controller, blame it on the patent didn't come through. Say somebody stole my idea. They blame everything. You know, the shipment didn't come through. It was faulted. They have all these reasons. But the great entrepreneurs say, okay, it's done. What do we do now? That's what they do. They move forward. So blaming and casting doubt as to whether you're responsible is a sure sign that you won't succeed in business. Just get rid of those people in my mind right away. I have in my office, every entrepreneur I've invested in on all my walls, beautiful frames. The minute I see them playing victims, I just walk over to my wall and flip it upside down. Why? Because when they call me, I sometimes get them mixed up because I have so many.
Oh my gosh.
And I look at the walls and I go, oh, that one, the victim. And I spend about a minute on the phone versus giving them an hour of my time.
Wow, that it really relates to something I've heard before, this idea of if you point the finger, 3 fingers point back at yourself.
Oh, I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah,
I heard this other finger story when I was a kid.
No. Is that for this podcast?
No.
Okay. So that's fascinating. So really, one thing that I found of early entrepreneurs or people maybe who are students who want to get started is sometimes they have this sense of the world owes me rather than they should provide the world something first.
Oh, they should keep their parents' money in their pocket and not do a thing.
I wonder, how do people overcome that? I don't like to use the word, but it's the best definition for that entitlement, that the world, if you want me to work harder, pay me more, that attitude. How do you...
You know, the right way to look at any position you have is who's paying me money to learn. And if you take a job, take a position just to learn, you're on the right course. When someone has an attitude of entitlement, you cannot change it.
Oh, wow.
I used to think you could. I used to lecture people and say, well, another way of looking at it is blah, blah, blah. But that's ingrained. When kids feel entitled, they really don't see them as the center of the universe. They see the universe as the center, and they're dancing around and saying, what can I get for it? It just doesn't work, and you cannot change them. I've tried, and I'm pretty formidable when I'm working on somebody, but I have never been able to move somebody 1 inch on that. Not at all.
So if somebody has that mentality, probably not somebody you want to hire, but if somebody maybe doesn't even realize that they have that mentality and that's what's holding them back, how could they change? How could they maybe see, okay, this is how I've got to change? And maybe, I suppose another way to phrase it is, how could you convince them to provide value to the world first?
I think what you could do is strip them of all their money and their privilege, put them in a poor apartment somewhere, give them 5 roommates and say, good luck, buddy.
Wow.
But parents aren't willing to do that. Parents with wealth or just some affluence make it their charge to help their children out. But I think they don't realize that kids have to struggle to build confidence. And so if you're always helping them out, they never become confident individuals. They just are unable to do it. So in a parent's attempt to protect a child, to give them special tutoring, to help them get into the right school, to do all this helpful stuff, each of those actions, I think, diminishes that child. And if they get lucky and finally are successful, they're not going to give credit to themselves. I've met more miserable rich kids working for their father's firm or some friend's firm, and they're not proud of what they do. And the reason is because they don't feel they did it themselves. The best you can do for a kid is to let them drop a little. That's how they learn what their bottom is and where their vulnerability is.
Really, that's really incredible, and it almost hits deep. I have a 7-year-old. I have a 5-year-old. We're expecting 2 more.
Yep.
And
that's a lot. Wow.
It's going to be interesting the next year.
I bet.
Yeah.
Do you want to be able to make a quick few $100 by just referring a link to somebody else? Well, the sponsor for today's video is actually me, and we have a new feature for you. If you click the link down below, you could actually sign up to get an affiliate link for the courses on building your wealth down below. So that's the real estate investing course, the property management course, that's how I became a millionaire, the stocks and psychology of money group, the how to make more money featuring artificial intelligence group, any of those courses. If you refer those to your friends or family or anyone that you know, you could earn a 30% commission. All you have to do is click the link down below and you will get your very own affiliate dashboard. Remember that one of the reasons this is my favorite sponsor of the channel is not only because it's me and it's easier to work with, but we have a really great customer service when you email us. If you need help, just send us an email at staff@meetkevin.com and we'll take great care of you. We add value all of the time to the programs, so they grow in value over time, and that's why the prices tend to go up over time as we increase content to the programs and continue to add value and support. A Q&A every single day in the programs, and of course, we have priority trade theses that we first talk about and think about and argue about and debate about in our course member live streams, and everybody gets access to those when you join those. So even if you just want the course member live streams, or you want the courses and the lectures or whatever, or you're already a member and you're like, hey, you're suggesting I can actually earn money back, you can get 30% now by signing up via the link down below, and you get a 30% commission when you sell one of the programs.
I've always had this vision that, I want to build a business and then maybe get to work with my children in the future in the business.
How nice.
But they might want to go off on their own, so I'll just have to have more children, so I have a higher odd of some of them sticking around.
But why would that be important that they take over your business?
I don't know. I guess I just want to spend time with them and be with them.
You might change your mind by the time they're 18. We'll see,
And so tell me about that. Is that the wrong way to look at it?
I don't agree with it myself, okay? When I was building my Corcoran Group business, my son was 5 when I sold it. Half the reason I sold that business is I looked at him, looked at all the guys I knew that were working for their parents' companies, very successful. Anyone would judge they're successful. And they did a lot of good things for the parents' company, but they never felt satisfied or proud. And so I decided to sell my business half to make sure my kid didn't go into my business. Now ask me what business he's in.
Real estate investing, you mentioned it earlier.
Real estate investing, so go figure. But he built it himself.
But he did it himself.
It's his own thing. He's very proud. And that's a world apart from if he had been the son of the big broker that ran the big firm.
Right.
Totally different attitude.
You've just changed my outlook.
You should. You should try to think, I think, with kids, really, what you could create as obstacles. I mean, don't break their legs and see if they can heal themselves. Right. But I think not to jump in, let them find their own bottom when they're having their bottoms. Wow. And it's a very hard thing to do as a parent. Sure. Because you love your children more than anything.
Yeah. That's really incredible insight, and I never
Your poor kids, you're not going to give them the time of day now.
Now I'm just put them up for adoption. That's it.
Get a job.
Get out of the house. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's really incredible and enlightening. Thank you for that. So in that case, I mean, I guess that also I think about what motivates me, because people ask me, they say, well, what motivates you? You could, retire. Why keep making videos, traveling for YouTube, or startups, this, that, or whatever? Why? And it's not a number for me. It's I want to build. That feeling maybe of, I think you mentioned it, success, like feeling like you built something, even if there's failure along the way.
Yes.
I guess robbing that from a child is probably the worst thing.
The worst thing. You build it little by little. If you really look back at your own life and think where you grew, it's always over hardship. Even disappointment, heartbreak. I mean, it's a terrible way to learn. I'm not all for it, but it is the way you learn. But I'm not at all surprised to hear that you're not motivated by counting the money of how successful you are, because I have found that people that are after the success never really get it. But people who are after doing an exceptional job or being better than the next guy or competing always get there.
That competition.
Oh, for sure. It's key.
But I mean, I'm sure when you build your business, competition was core, especially in Manhattan here. I mean, this is the epitome of competition.
Yes.
How did you, I see, when I started in the real estate business, I always felt this, I called it the toxicity of relativity.
Wow, fancy. What's that mean?
Comparing myself to other people.
Oh,
somebody else is better than me. And so to some extent it was motivating, but on the other hand, it also felt toxic. Oh, they got the listing over me. And as much as I wanted to think, okay, well, what could I do better? It always somewhat, there was this little thing in the back of your mind, like you almost, you don't want to say it, but you feel resentful. You're like, oh, why them and not me, right? How do you overcome that? I mean, I think
the resentment has to be dropped right away. I mean, a part of it is because you're competitive by nature. So if somebody beats you at a particular challenge, like getting the listing of something, a chunk of your business, you're going to look at them and resent them. I went further than resentment. I hated their guts.
So you had that problem too.
Of course, anybody worthwhile does. You hate their guts simply because your nature is to be competitive. It's not fair to be that way, but it is that way. You know, I had a great advantage when I was young in the business. I was probably only in business maybe a year. I was 24, went to a board meeting of all the real estate kings of the industry, all rich men who inherited their empires from their fathers, the rich fathers who inherited from their grandfathers. And then I come clunking in. But this is what I noticed. The very first day I met them, I said, they're cocky. And I knew they had a vulnerable heel. I said, I'm going to come and I'm going to get them because they're cocky. The minute I see a cockiness in any institution, they're going to lose money. The minute I see a cocky in any competition, they're going to lose money. So I saw that they were vulnerable because they were so damn sure of themselves, whereas I was insecure. So I had to run twice as hard to prove everything. And that's what got me to where I was.
How did you deal with the criticism then and even today? I mean, social media, it's so easy for people to criticize.
Oh, I don't ever read my social media.
You don't?
Except the compliments I have them washed out because I don't want to be depressed. I answer all my social media, but only the positive things. I ignore everything else.
Oh, wow.
Because you know why? I don't really need it. But can I tell you, ignoring criticism, or as you put it just a short while ago, ignoring your tendency to watch what the other guy is doing and feel envious, you cannot watch what the other guy is doing. You just cannot. It's poison. You're spending your time, your money, and your energy on somebody else, like giving them your wallet. No. I'm happy to do it. You're happy you're doing it. I hope you do poorly, and let me focus on what I'm doing.
You know, that's funny that you say that. Kathy Wood, ETF manager, I had dinner with her in Tampa, and I asked her, how do you deal with the criticism? Because she's the definition of what people like to either applaud or criticize.
I'd love to hear this answer, sure.
Her response was, why would I allow any negativity to take away my energy?
She's so right. She said it succinctly, which I was trying to say 5 minutes ago, in 40 words or more. But it's so true. She's right.
That's quite empowering. So what do you say to somebody now in the economy is obviously, you know, wherever it is right now. It's
depends on who you ask. Everybody's doomsday,
exactly. And I think that's a lot. You mentioned it earlier. It sells the news, right?
Oh, of course it is. Yeah.
Anything. It was funny. As soon as the debt ceiling started looking like a deal was set together, the Bloomberg headlines are, well, now what if the further on the right or the further on the left start protesting, and then procedural hurdles? There's always a negative.
And what if the dollar collapses?
Oh my gosh.
Everything. You throw more up on the screen. Yeah.
So how, as somebody getting started coming out of, let's say, college, or that they've got maybe $1,000, $2,000, just start a business, go work for somebody, learn, what's the best thing to do, or both?
It depends on the individual. For me, I had 22 jobs before I started. Okay. So I was well versed in what a job meant, how to scrap, how to make a tip better than the next girl, how to just prove yourself as a hard worker. So I had all that time and all that people studying that I got. I had terrible bosses. I had a few nice bosses. So I came in at 23 into my own business. I looked young, but I wasn't young inside. I had been around the block a few times, you know. So I think getting a job of manual labor where you have to really move your legs and your feet, I think is essential to learn about business. And the best way, but what most kids do today, I know the peers of all my kids when they were growing up was, where could I get a good summer internship? I think it's a total waste of time. You're protected. You're not really working. You're sort of working. No, get out there and get a job, make a buck, and that creates your confidence, just like that. So I forget where I was going with this answer. What was your question?
Getting started as you've got your first $1,000.
Oh yeah, so
learning, it sounds like.
So I think before you take your first $1,000 and run out and start a business, I think by far you should get a job just to see what it works like and how hard it is to make a buck. When you work your ass off for $1, you see that $1,000 as precious. I got a $1,000 loan from my boyfriend to start my business. I'm telling you, I looked at every penny of that 1,000 like it was gold, and I made it stretch 3 months. If I hadn't, I couldn't have stayed in business. But just, you have to cherish every penny. If someone can't lecture you on it, you have to learn it by working for a penny and seeing how hard it is, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned doing that manual work.
Yes.
And working with people. Now, everybody seems to care about artificial intelligence and not dealing with people. Is that a mistake?
Oh, I don't think everybody cares about art. I wouldn't go that far.
Okay, fair.
It can be a lonely path. Artificial intelligence has changed so many businesses. I know even in my shop, we spent so much time writing content. Now we are editors. We don't write anymore. We just give the job away, and then we edit what we read, you know? It's so much easier. It's changed everything. But what you can't do is put a human being in a room with artificial intelligence, new person or machine, and create a team. There's never teammanship. And where do you get the greatness out of people? Where do you climb mountains and accomplish things you never thought you could accomplish? Where do you dream and actually see the dreams come true? It's not there. It's with individuals, human interaction, and joining hands and getting excited and criticizing each other and the whole shoot match. That's what makes a team. And you can't do that. So short of that, it's wonderful. I'm a little concerned about it hurting a little bit of the new hirees in every industry because people are thinking they could farm that work out.
Right.
But I believe you have to make a team of people to begin with, and the easiest time to do it is when they're young, you know? So we'll see where it lends itself. It's very interesting, isn't it, though?
It's fascinating.
Nobody has the answer.
No, nobody does, yeah. Would you say that's the best way to hire? Is do you hire somebody who has maybe no experience so you can mold them?
I love it.
Really?
Yeah. I love hiring experienced people. When I was building my career, no one wanted to work for me in my industry because they want to work for the big companies in town. I don't blame them. They had a lot to offer, you know. They had a lot of money. They weren't going to go out of business in 2 months if they didn't make it. So I kind of got that viewpoint. So I had to forget about it to do effective hiring because otherwise it stood my way. But I have to say, through those years, I built my business on inexperienced people. I had housewives coming in who had never worked a day in their life, and they had raised their kids. And I had to figure out, are they salespeople? Are they killers? Can they close a deal? How do you do that with a housewife? You know, I had my methods for discovering that. All right. And then once I started my media business, I hire all kids right out of college. It's the easiest way to go. You have a chunk of beautiful ambition and beautiful potential, and you get to decide how you might mold it. How thrilling is that? It's pretty close to playing God. You know? So it's a thrill, you know. If you have somebody experienced, their attitudes come with them. They can sell a little better on coming in because they lean on their experience to sell you. No, I like pure potential.
It sounds like you're probably not a big fan of remote work.
I love remote work.
Really? Okay.
I don't give a darn where people work.
Person and human interaction.
No. My people are in the office 2 to 3 days a week, and that's about right.
Okay.
If they chose that they only wanted to be in the office, never, I'd oppose that. I'd have them in 1 day a week.
There's
at
a
least.
Balance then.
Yeah, but they work so much as a team, but they could still work remote. What do I care as long as the work gets done, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So now, how could that potentially affect this real estate transition that we've seen? We've seen so many people during COVID move to Austin and South Florida and away from.
They were free.
No kidding. Could some of that reverse now? Could we see maybe people go back to California or New York?
No. I mean, when people leave New York City for different crises reasons I've seen over the years in this business, they always come back. But this is different. It was pulling up the shade and letting people know they had options. Okay. And then accommodated to by your boss who lets you work at home. So your option didn't disappear. No, people now feel more free to live anywhere they want. And it has hit at the core of many of our major cities, of course.
Oh, yeah.
But we have so much coming into the cities. I'm not worried about it. I'm not thinking, oh, New York's not going to fill up those spaces in the apartment market. There's still not enough apartments to go around,
Right.
No, it all worked out, but it's been a new freedom for people and they've taken advantage of it. And I think it's been wonderful for people's spirit. And it's been so good that people had a pause button to actually sit and think, what about this rat race a minute? Is this really where I want to go? You ever hear the expression that Lily Tomlin, she said, even if you win the rat race,
Still a rat.
You're still a rat. Oh, I couldn't remember the punchline. Okay, yeah. You heard that one. I only heard it the other day. I thought, wow, that's a great one.
Yeah.
I better memorize it better.
Oh, that's all right. So would you invest outside of New York, or do you generally prefer just New York, or would you go to South Florida and invest in, say, residential real estate?
You're talking about as an investment?
You yourself or somebody listening, would you diversify away from maybe where you live?
I took all my money, except my existing holdings of buildings that I've bought over time. I haven't sold those because once I buy a building, I fall in love with it, especially in New York when it's made so much money and I can refinance it and take cash out.
Tax-free?
Oh, yeah, tax-free. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah.
But I have to say in the last 4 years, I've invested predominantly in Pittsburgh and Washington.
Wow.
Not New York at all, because they've changed the laws in New York. You cannot improve your property and hope to get added rent. It used to be you put a roof on a property, gut renovated property, make it a stunning place to live, and you could raise the rent. Not anymore. New York changed the rules. Albany is out of their mind. They chased away investors like me out of New York City.
Wow.
You can't make money in New York City right now, but they will change again. I've seen the pendulum swing both ways, and I'll return with a lot of money to New York. But in these other cities, it's incredible. They love real estate people. The laws are friendly to real estate people. They have educated people. The population's growing. The cities are beautiful. I just do better financially.
Pittsburgh and D.C.
Yeah, no, Pittsburgh and Washington I've invested in.
Wow, okay. Washington State then?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're traveling over there. Is this predominantly multifamily or single or both?
What I like the sweet spot. I like 3 units to 15 units. Somehow, I know I should, if you put a lot of them together, you could have a high rise, but I like having my little buildings all around. I like to see them.
What I've found is that when you get into too large of real estate, that opportunity to add value goes away. You got the big funds coming in, they pay
competition is fierce.
Yeah.
Everybody's ignoring my piece of the market.
Yes.
My son turned me on to
the smaller parts.
Yep, he makes his whole living buying those properties, and he's right, because he doesn't have competition, and people are scared right now. So you can get good deals.
Oh yeah.
You could low bidding, and you get a few that accept them.
This is how I started my career. My vision was I am driving around with a Prius. Meet Kevin, the no-pressure agent.
It's a great photo of you.
Thank you. Providing more value.
It's
that was my
great ad. Yeah, right on your car too.
Yeah.
Great
and then
ad.
what I did.
What's the location there?
This was California. SoCal.
Santa Barbara. Yeah,
Santa Barbara, Ventura.
Fat little market out there.
Yeah. And then what I did is, because I wanted to provide more value for my clients, because I know how important it is to be quick, to be unique, and to be in person.
Yes.
I had a little trailer where I keep my for sale signs. So when I signed a listing.
Clever.
So when I signed a listing.
I have to hand it to you. I'm sorry I hadn't thought of that one. That's a good one. I could have had them in the back of a taxi.
Yeah. See, because now when you sign a listing, the sign is in the yard the minute you leave, and the client looks and he goes, nobody's done that.
Pretty snappy. Yeah. You old tiger, you.
So I also became a licensed contractor and a licensed lender. So when I sat a listing presentation, I could tell the client, we can list it at, say, $499.
Yeah.
Or we could put $20,000 in and we can sell it for $600,000.
It's a hard 20 to get from a client, though. They don't like to spend money on the way out.
Of course they don't.
Yeah.
So I lent it to them because I was a licensed lender.
You dirty devil, you.
I put a deed, a second on the property, which I underwrote the value of the property anyway.
Yeah, right. You know what you're doing.
And I was a licensed lender, so I could legally record a deed. Notarized.
You know what you were like? You were like those late night hosts who say, and not only that, you get this and you get an extra 2 months.
You're calling me ShamWow now.
No, I'm not.
The broader economy, I have to ask you. Federal Reserve, inflation, interest rates, how much does that really concern you?
It doesn't.
Doesn't concern you at all?
You know what I haven't learned about business? I mean, myself and also my entrepreneurs, I lecture this to them, and I think they believe me. They seem to practice this. I tell them not to read anything. go out for lunch on everything that's happening, and do what they do best, which is to do more of what they're doing well. And you want to know, I have learned, no matter what went on in the economy, I've lived through so much in this town. This town has its highs and its lows, the stock market crashes, 9/11, everything. I barreled through everything simply because I was not that informed and I was determined to get there. There's no substitute at all when you're building a business, and you've done it successfully, of your own pure intuition and determination and ambition to get to the finish line. And if you have that, all the rest of the stuff is noise. I'm not saying it's not credible in one way or the other, but what does it have to really do with what you're going to do today? Not much.
That's a very good point. I suppose then to an entrepreneur watching, we have to ask ourselves, when you wake up in the morning, does it really matter what the Federal Reserve is going to do in 2 weeks, or do our clients matter and the value we're trying to provide to them?
Well, you can certainly answer that. The only thing that matters even more than your clients is how much you value yourself when you wake up in the morning, how much you value your time, and how hard you're going to drive. If you got that in order, everything else, if clients respect you, the money comes in, everything works out because you're in control of yourself.
How important do you think it is to, people comment this on my channel, they say I change my mind often, and that has been defined as a flip-flapper.
Oh, yes.
Oh, flip-flop.
Especially with someone else's money.
Well,
They pivot.
Yeah. So how important is that in entrepreneurship, to be able to pivot?
It's very important, and I don't think of it as pivoting, because that sounds like you do a 150-degree turn of some
adjustments.
kind. Yeah. What I think is its ability to listen. I change my mind all the time because I listen hard. I might have a great idea. I know it's going to succeed, but then I listen to cool people who kind of know a little bit more about that space, have a different perspective, and then I change my mind based on what they said. It doesn't mean I said, oh boy, was I wrong, but I incorporate by listening hard. So I think pivoting, if that's the fashionable word, is a result of listening hard in its best case scenario and changing your business a little at a time. And its worst case, it's like, I lost that money, I went through my burn rate, I have nothing left, let me borrow more and let me go in a different direction. There's two different headsets on that, isn't there?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Kevin O'Leary said that...
You're not going to quote Kevin. Please spare me.
He actually agrees with you,
I have to listen to him all day.
I know, but he agrees with you.
Okay, then let's hear it.
He says flip-flopping is a requirement in entrepreneurship.
No, I would not say flip-flopping. No,
say,
adjusting is key. Flip-flopping is too expensive.
So what's the difference between the two? It's like a 10% adjustment versus a 180 is what you're suggesting.
It's asking the question, how could I do this a little better?
The refinements.
Yeah, but flip-flopping is,
interesting.
Let's give up this market, let's go to that market. That costs a lot of money.
That's,
it never works.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. That's a really good point. There was a rumor that at one point, when it came to real estate here, you were asked by Donald Trump to put together a report that you potentially disagreed with, some valuations on.
On this building, actually.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, that was interesting. He asked me to, every developer in town wanted this building to retrofit, make it a beautiful condominium. Every developer, from Larry Silverstein to the Maclows to Donald Trump, who was the least developer in the space. And he was smart enough to come to me and say, I want you to pitch General Electric with me and get me this building. And I want you to appraise what I'm going to get for it, considering my Trump factor. Now, I knew the Trump factor was his own ego factor, and it wouldn't have an effect on anything. But I did a careful assessment, used my best agents, and I came up with the price of $568 a square foot. I remember it because when it was finally sold, it came in, I'm not making this up, at $568 a foot, all the units sold. And now, of course, I think it's probably trading at, I haven't kept up, it was $3,000 a foot. But in that day, that was incredible. And what was fabulous about him as a salesman, I watched the other developers pitch, and they pitched their resumes, their successes. What he pitched was bullshit. He pitched the Trump factor, like the Trump factor. Whatever these guys say, I'll get you that. Plus, what would you say, Barbara, 30% more in that pipe? And I say, no, maybe 10. He goes, okay, 10, maybe 20. But they fell for it. I watched these grown men, analytical, financial types, fall for it. And I learned a very important sales lesson, which was that bullshit flies. Wow. It's much more important than fact. And boy, can he sell, because he's not afraid to make stuff up.
So how do you feel then, DeSantis versus Trump versus Biden?
Well, I think Biden needs a little, some vitamins, whatever. Maybe a new lease on life. I mean, when he makes his fist on air, I'm like, please just make it harder. Please make it harder. No, he's like, I tell you,
Oh no!
I tell you,
Stop.
no. But DeSantis is like another younger version of Trump, I think, in
Oh, okay.
writing. That's my own impression.
Is
I'm
that-
not very politically geared, and
Yeah.
Donald Trump has the power to sell, and so I take him more seriously than anybody out there who's a contender.
We're down to just the last 4 minutes here. I really want to circle back to children. This idea of entitlement. How would you handle raising children in the situation that I've presented to you, my world, my life? How do you let them fail, and how do you make sure that they don't grow up as entitled, spoiled children? Mostly because when I started hiring for my media business, somebody betrayed me who ended up being the biggest motivating force for me to create what I've created now, which was so wonderful.
You owe them a thank you note.
I do. I owe them a thank you. Generally, I've always found that every time I feel slighted, I feel like I should send them a thank you, like a Mrs. Fields cookie card.
Well,
like,
only if you succeed.
Oh, well.
If it puts you under, you don't want to send them a thank you note.
Well, I suppose that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't want my children to be like them, that person. Well,
you don't have to fear that.
I worry about that.
No, you don't have to fear them being a creep, because you aren't, and I'm sure your wife isn't either.
Mm-hmm.
Children, in the end, become what they see, but they see two different groups of people. They see their family, and that's going to have a great influence on them. But what influences a child most, I think, is their peer group. They care more once they hit their young teenage years about what their peers think. They want to wear the same clothes. They want to spend the same money on their loafers. They want to go to the same cool places. They see their fancy houses. So the peers influence children most. So you have a limited window to influence your kids to cause them pain or to allow them to feel pain. So, for example, when my kids wanted fancy clothes, I said no. Now, would it seem mean? Maybe. But I could have certainly bought them the same fancy labels that everybody else had, but I said, no, maybe on your birthday. When they wanted a phone, maybe when you hit double digits. I always made them wait, so they created desire. And I think that helps, because you're not matching the Joneses. You don't mean to, but in the end, you wind up doing it. If you live in an affluent area, everybody's got nice stuff, and you give nice stuff to your kids, so that's a good thing. But more importantly than any of that is look for where they struggle. No kids are perfect. They always have a struggle with bullying. They have a struggle with acne. They have a struggle with whatever. Let them struggle. It doesn't mean that you don't jump in and save them in the end, but give them a little line to struggle and see what they do with it. Kids surprise you. Kids surprise you what they're able to be resilient about, if you give them the space to be resilient. But wealthier parents, catch kids all the time right away. Oh, but I could do this. Oh, but I could do that. Why don't I do this? Hey, how about if Uncle Harry does well? And you do it out of love. So it comes from such an intuitive spot where you want to help them. But I think just hold it back. And what, are they going to die in 6 months if you don't jump in? No, they're going to be alive. I think just give them a little leeway to see what they could discover in themselves. Wow. Yeah.
Barbara, this has been wonderful. Is there anything that you'd like to add or shout out or pitch? Where can people follow you? What
I would say is make sure you have a post-up with your wife. I think you're going to get very wealthy one day. You want to make sure, in case anything goes wrong with the marriage, that you have a post-up. And that's what I have to say. Now, if you want to find me, I'm on all the social media platforms. It's very easy.
Why are you so jaded?
I'm jaded?
Yeah.
No, I've been married twice. I'm older than you. By my age, 90% of the people I knew who were happily married are not.
Oh.
So I'm saying, just make sure that part of your life is in order financially.
Wow.
I bet you don't have
I just work twice as hard. I don't.
Well, you should.
I don't have a prenup. I don't have a postnup, and I just work twice as hard.
Well, then work twice as hard, because you might one day have to give half of it away, which leaves you whole. Okay.
Pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Absolutely.
Okay.